Have you ever been embarrassed or ashamed of your body? In Lakshmi's Mooch by Shelley Anand and illustrated by Nabi H. Ali, Lakshmi and a classmate are playing at school when all of a sudden she's teased for having a mustache. Indian American Lakshmi looks at herself in the mirror and sure enough, there it is, a mustache, or a mooch, Hindi for mustache. From here, Lakshmi's parents lead her on a journey of self-acceptance by showing her that her body hair is part of her heritage, an important part of her body and identity, and something to be proud of. This story effectively combats negative messages about girls and women's body hair, especially targeted at girls and women of color, in a funny, engaging, and age-appropriate way. Lakshmi learns not only to love and embrace her own body and her mooch, but she also helps show the other kids in her class how to embrace theirs as well. This hopeful picture book, Light for All, by award-winning author Margarita Engel and illustrated by Raul Colon, is about the familiar Statue of Liberty as a symbol of freedom, equality, and the American pride and dreams. But we also know that the story of America is not one that has always aligned with these values. This is a powerful, lyrical story that doesn't shy away from acknowledging the bitter story of the United States' cruel beginning and touching on the disenfranchisement of marginalized communities, including Indigenous peoples and African Americans. What's so cool about this book is that it's going to be an engaging read for your preschooler as well as your second or third grader, and it's sure to spark some important discussions in your family about empathy, acceptance, and the fraught history of our country. In the city of Tainan, there lives a very special family. Special because they have 10 sons who do everything together. Their parents call them their 10 little dumplings, as both sons and dumplings are very lucky in Taiwanese culture. But if you look closely in 10 Little Dumplings by Larissa Fan and illustrated by Cindy Wu, you'll see that someone else is there listening, studying, learning, and discovering her own talent. A sister. As this little girl grows up in the shadow of her brothers, her determination and persistence help her to create her own path in the world and becomes the wisdom she passes on to her own daughter, her own little dumpling. Have you ever tried to trace your ancestry through generations by making a family tree? A young black girl in Born on the Water by Nicole Hannah-Jones and Renee Watson tries to do just that, but gets frustrated when she can only find information going back a few generations. That's when her grandmother begins to tell her the story of their ancestors, beginning in West Central Africa before they were enslaved. This is a lyrical, triumphant narrative told through poems based on Hannah-Jones's 1619 project. The story of this one American family becomes the story of the consequences of slavery and the history of Black resistance in the United States, presenting a fine balance between portraying an honest picture of enslavement and consideration for elementary-aged readers. Imagine if the buffalo that used to roam the plains were allowed to run wild in our world today. It would be beautiful, it would be sensational, but it would also be chaotic. In this whimsical picture book bedtime story, Buffalo Wild by Deirdre Haverlock, Declan wonders just that. He hears the stories his Cree grandmother told him about when millions of wild buffalo roamed the land, and he dreams them into existence in the here and now. He can't believe his eyes when the prairie suddenly looks as wild as it was in those stories. But soon the buffalo start to wreak havoc in his garden, and Declan asks the creator to take them back to the sky. With bold illustrations by Asby Whitecalf, author Deirdre Haverlock from the Saddle Lake Cree Nation explores the importance of buffalo to Indigenous peoples and helps the reader to imagine a time when the land we live in was truly wild. In the joyful and gender-affirming picture book Teo's Tutu by Marianne Jacob Marcias and illustrated by Alia Marley, Teo loves to dance, but ballet class makes him nervous. Teo is biracial with a South Asian mom and a Latinx dad, and they dance together at home all the time. But the Bhangra and the Cumbia are very different from ballet. In the ballet studio, a boy makes fun of Teo's tutu, but the teacher immediately comes to Teo's defense. The more he practices, the more confident and talented he feels. But when the recital costumes arrive, Teo nervously picks out a shirt and pants just like all the other boys. But he also takes home a lavender tutu, which is what he really wants to wear. On recital day, when he has to make a decision, Teo's family encourages him to wear the clothes that he likes best, emphasizing that at times, being our authentic selves requires all of us to be brave. In Yusuf Azim is Not a Hero by Sadia Faruqi, Yusuf is excited to start middle school in his small Texas town, but with the 20th anniversary of the September 11 attacks coming up, suddenly it feels like the country's anger and grief from so long ago is all focused on his Muslim community. Uncle Rahman gives Yusuf his journal from 2001, when he was 12, and through it, Yusuf learns about how his uncle and other American Muslims were affected by Islamophobia and why 9/11 still matters today. These diary entries are seamlessly woven into the story as Yusuf slowly finds his own voice and the strength to stand up for what's right, even if it's scary. Manuela is a witchling in a lush land inspired by the Dominican Republic, and so she is taken in by a religious order of sisters who run a school for little girls with magical powers. The order's practice focuses on using their powers for good and for serving others, but Manu is always getting into mischief and showing off. Manu is different from the other kids, even down to the kind of bird she's able to transfigure into, which complicates her social life. One thing leads to another, and a curse causes her to seek help from a demon, which brings out parts of Manu that she would much rather hide. Manu, by Kelly Fernandez, is a lively graphic novel romp through a quirky magical world with a lovable heroine, perfect for elementary and middle schoolers, especially fans of Amulet and Witch Boy. In Samira Surfs by Ruxana Gidros, 11-year-old Samira and her Rohingya family are settled into their new life in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, after fleeing Burma by boat in 2012. Samira is glad she can help support her family by selling hard-boiled eggs on the nearby beach, but longs to attend school. But even if they didn't need the money Samira contributes, her father believes that, given their future opportunities, education only benefits boys. Samira is afraid of the water after the fateful boat ride from Burma that killed her grandparents. But when she befriends a group of Rohingya and Bangladeshi surfers, the announcement of a surfing contest with a cash prize motivates her to overcome her fear and learn how to be the best surfer she can be. Winning could prove to her family that girls, like boys, can change their family's fortunes. Black Lives Matter. Recognize, an anthology honoring and amplifying Black life, edited by Wade Hudson and Cheryl Willis Hudson, is a powerful collection of essays, poems, short stories, comics, and more around one central theme: Black Lives Matter. With selections from a stellar roster of 30 children's book creators, including Nikki Grimes, Kwame Mbalia, and Sharon Draper, this volume is full to the brim with Black excellence. Excerpts, quotes, and speeches from historical figures such as Frederick Douglass and James Baldwin are also interspersed throughout. Though the stirring entries address a diverse array of topics such as gender, police violence, and Black joy, they all come back to the central theme: Black Lives Matter. This book will engage middle school readers in class discussions or for pleasure reading, and definitely as a rallying cry for change. When someone defaces the gym of her suburban middle school with racist graffiti, some of Junie Kim's friends are outraged and want to organize a protest. Not Junie, though. Junie is Korean American, and she has been facing the racist taunts of the school bus bully every morning. She is tired of resisting. Instead, she turns inward and becomes cynical, negative, and even depressed. She's finally inspired to get involved when a school assignment to interview an elder gives Junie a chance to hear about her beloved grandfather's boyhood during the Korean War. His harrowing tale and her grandmother's similarly traumatic story offer valuable perspective, and she takes action by working with her friends to create a video about diversity for an upcoming assembly. Finding Junie Kim by Ellie O is a great upstanders story. It's an intergenerational tale that realistically highlights a girl's growing confidence and awareness of social justice issues. Here's one that's going to be a hit with tweens and young teens. In Perfectly Parveen by Olivia Abdahi, Iranian-American Parveen is about to start her freshman year how she always dreamed, with a cute boyfriend she met over the summer. Things do not go as planned, however, when she is dumped on the first day of school. Her plan? To take a cue from her favorite romantic comedies and transform herself into the kind of girl that the most popular guy in school might ask to homecoming. Of course, Parveen discovers that being a rom-com dream girl is much harder than it looks. Also hard, the parent-mandated Farsi lessons. A confusing friendship with a boy who's definitely not supposed to like her. And hardest of all, the ramifications of the Muslim ban on her family in Iran. Suddenly, being herself has never been more important. Mateo Garcia is your average high schooler. He dreams of being a Broadway star, he loves hanging with his friends, and he makes extra pocket money working in his father's bodega. He and his younger sister Sophie have been taught to fear one word for as long as they can remember: deportation. His parents have been in New York City for so long that both Mateo and his sister were born there. When Mateo returns from school one day to find that his parents have been taken by ICE, he realizes that his family's worst nightmare had become a reality. In Indivisible by Daniel Aleman, now Mateo must figure out who he is and what he is capable of, even as he is forced to question what it means to be an American. Skin of the Sea, the series opener by debut author Natasha Bowen, has so much action and fantasy packed in. Mermaids, West African mythology, historical commentary on the trading of enslaved people in the 1400s, and plenty of fast-paced action. Simi is a human teen turned mermaid who is tasked to collect and usher to the afterlife the souls of deceased West African people thrown overboard from passing slave ships. When a living team named Kola lands in the water during a violent storm, Simi defies the supreme creator and saves his life. Haunted by the memory of the captured human girl she was before she was remade into a mermaid, Simi embarks on a dangerous journey to return the boy home, whatever the cost. Walking in Two Worlds by Wabkin Yu is a high-tech science fiction thriller set in the near future with virtual gamer teen Bugs at the helm. Bugs is a regular Anishinaabe teen who lives on the reservation with family, including her mother, who is the first modern-day woman elected as chief. Bugs is socially awkward, but in the virtual gaming world of the Floraverse, she's actually kind of famous, earning micropayments from fans and dominating against the misogynist, racist, alt-right group Clan, Less, who make it a goal to take Bugs out of the game entirely. Using her nation's knowledge to marshal living beings in the verse's natural landscape, Bugs pits herself against the group's artificial technology. Bugs has a virtual love interest, but struggles to balance her online persona with her real-life identity. First written in Japanese in 1937 and perfect for tween and younger teen readers, How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino is a story told in two voices. One is 15-year-old Copper as he struggles to confront inevitable and enormous change after his father's death, and the other voice belongs to his uncle, who writes to him in a journal, sharing knowledge and advice. This deeply thoughtful, slow-burn Japanese classic also happens to be Studio Ghibli's filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki's favorite childhood book, and is quietly impactful.